Move now to Telecom, where numbers are expected for most of the large companies, and there has been some interesting developments on the subscriber numbers the last time they were released. Shubham Majumder of Macquarie Research joins in to talk about all of that. Morning, Shubham. Good to see you again. Were any surprises in the last subscriber numbers? Because Vodafone seems to have done much better than Bharti. Idea seems not to have done very well. Any takeaways at all or trends that you could see?
Yes, thanks. Yes, Vodafone has clearly been a positive surprise in the March subscriber numbers. It came through a couple of days back. 3.6 million subscriber additions compared to Bharti's 3 million subs. It's only now, over the last 3 to 6 months, that quite a few of the telecom companies have actually achieved pan-India status post-rollout of networks. Vodafone in 6 new circles over the last 6 to 9 months. Idea Cellular in about 7 new markets over the last few months. Aircel has gotten pan-India over the last few months as well. We will see Tata Docomo potentially cover off all of India with GSM in the coming months. They were at 15 circles till a month back. So historically, while Bharti, BSNL and Reliance have been the only companies which have essentially been pan-India, now you got at least 6 to 7 telecom companies which are actually covering off all of the 22 circles, achieving pan-India status. And I think the subscriber numbers in the coming months will be an interesting take on how these 6 or 7 telcos actually do in terms of net additions on a monthly basis, now that they're all comparable on an apples-to-apples basis, having achieved pan-India status.
So far, the market has been worried about the kind of pricing pressures the increased competition might bring, Shubham. But do you think there might be reasons to now start worrying about volume growth or even market share for some of the incumbent players?
I think for Bharti, clearly there are 2 parts to the story now. One is the domestic business. The other is obviously the large Zen Africa asset, which is in the process of getting integrated over the coming months, I guess. On the domestic market side, I think investors have largely been getting incrementally more positive, given that there haven't been any major new tariff cuts that have come through over the last 2 to 3 months. Tariff seems to have settled down, and the noise in the sector also seems to have settled down. What's incrementally happening, though, is that new networks continue to get launched. So Videocon Telecom has clearly sprung a positive surprise to my mind by achieving a launch in 3-4 circles already. Meaningful circles like Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and so on and so forth are in the process of being launched, and they are talking about big capex numbers over the next 3 years. Whether they'll get achieved or not is anyone's guess, but I guess they're talking about $3 billion type capex number over the next 2 to 3 years, which has come as a surprise to me, definitely, if not for others. Coming back to the subscriber numbers, what's interesting to note here is that I think the take of the market and investors largely has been that Bharti remains the unparalleled champion in the rural markets, especially in the B and C category circles. But if you dissect the numbers this month, then you will see that in rural India, I mean B and C category circles, Vodafone has actually done exactly 2 million additions, exactly the same as Bharti has done in rural India. And if you go to the metropolitan and A category circles, which basically make up the bread and butter in terms of profitability for Indian telecom companies, the 7 circles that basically make up the bulk of EBITDA share, to my mind, there Vodafone has done 1.6 million ads compared to Bharti's 1 million. So going forward, it will be interesting to see whether the lead that Bharti has had in the B and C category circles by virtue of its clear head start by 3 or 4 years in these markets continues unchallenged, or whether there are new players getting into those markets, taking away the lead that Bharti has historically had. So we are basically at the crossroads with regard to subscriber growth momentum going forward, and clearly I think the unique subs growth has probably come off to sub 20% year on year or less, to my mind, going forward. Plus there are more players vying for market share now in the B and C category circles, where historically it's only been Bharti, BSNL and Arcom CDMA, largely speaking.
In that context, though, Shubham, Idea stood out with its weakness or its rather lackluster performance. I mean, is it early enough to call this a trend of Idea beginning to lag, or are you genuinely worried about the numbers they threw up?
Idea has been a little bit of a puzzling case to me, and I'm yet to come up with a final thesis on what the future trends will actually portend. Idea's numbers have been pretty different, or have been moving around quite a bit over the last few months. They have done anywhere between 1.4 to 2.3 million subscriber additions on a monthly basis, which looks a little funny given that Bharti or Vodafone's numbers seem to be a lot more linear and growing. I don't know whether Idea's management is clearly making a case here that they will set a floor for certain type of ARPU customers. Is that a conscious decision that they're taking, or are they genuinely facing some heat in some of the incumbency circles where they have had a bit of a head start earlier on? But definitely, if Idea continues to be outpaced by a BSNL or Aircel or Tata over time, then their revenue market share, which currently places them at a close number 4 behind Bharti, Vodafone and Arcom, may increasingly come under challenge. So you need to watch out on that area for Idea specifically.
Just to switch away from Telecom for a second, Shubham, I believe you track Z very carefully as well. What did you make of the numbers, and any preliminary thoughts on this acquisition they've announced of 9X?
There isn't much of a detail on the 9X acquisition, unfortunately, as of now. We clearly know that 9X wasn't really doing very well as a business and was looking for sellers for a while. And there are 3 channels that 9X basically had. One was the GEC, the other was the news, and the third one was the music channel. Of that, I think 9X Music was the only one which was sort of clearly doing well relative to the other 2 properties in the music genre. They had actually carved out a lead over MTV. But there aren't very many financial details available, and we'll probably wait for management commentary in that regard before making any formal comments on the 9X acquisition. Coming to the Z Entertainment results, the regional GEC's business, which has actually gotten integrated from Z News into Z Entertainment starting 1st of January of this quarter, adjusting for those, the numbers obviously look very different. We have made some assumptions, but we are basically looking for clear-cut numbers from management as to how much was the contribution from our GEC business of Z News for this quarter alone. We are actually reviewing our numbers on the stock with regard to the changing business mix with result of the integration, and we'll formalize our view in the next couple of days.
Good speaking with you, Shubham. Thanks for stopping by with your thoughts on the telecom space and on that particular stock.